What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with a quick Destiny 2 update and interesting upcoming content things to talk about. So initially we'll round up some of the content from this week, but we get a better look at some of the armor we're going to see in Beyond Light. We'll touch on that, as well as a couple of very interesting icons for factions associated with Beyond Light. We'll talk about a couple of mysteries on Europa and interesting new weapons, but then we've got a couple of updates associated with the game at the moment, glitches and minor roundups in this video. So guys, I hope you enjoy this one as always, but without further delay, let's get into it. Once again this week we had our run of the weekly interference mission. I think we've had all variations of the quest to unlock that now, but then inside of the mission itself, it doesn't appear that the tree has kind of changed or progressed significantly. But this week's dialogue section has Eris talking about being unborn, so if you want a quick recap, here it is.
This word is bound to creation, but presented here as falsehood, something like unborn. We say guardians are rebirthed by light, but I do sometimes wonder. The choice to live again was not our own.
The dialogue and lore card this week kind of referenced the Traveler as evil and suggests that it resurrected us against our will, but also that our greatest source of suffering is from our own mistakes and not the mistakes of the Creator. A couple of confusing statements in there, but essentially the darkness are challenging our belief in the Traveler. We know that more secrets and mysteries await us inside of the interference mission in the future, so we're simply going to have to wait and see, but of course they will connect with that upcoming story for Beyond Light. And so here let's jump in and talk about a couple of things associated with the expansion we're getting later this year. Initially, Bungie did share a new Snapchat filter, and what it does is actually previews some of the armor, and specifically the helmets for an armor set in Beyond Light. So of course you can check out the link for that in the description below, but it gives us a better opportunity to take a look at a couple of them. So interesting, these have this kind of holographic neon line element on the front, and the filter here gives us a better idea of what they look like up close, but we also get a couple of very short glimpses in the trailer. So it's pretty interesting because we can see on the Warlock's class item an icon with what I believe is a tiger. Of course logical for Destiny since his codename is Tiger, but either way some kind of a large cat, and the icon is currently only visible on some of the deluxe edition pre-order items. So it's on a couple of items here described as Europa Explorer stuff, and so this is likely going to be a new faction icon of some sort, either associated with early explorers of the location, which would be somewhat similar to the Takenaut references on the moon. However, of course, it could also be linked to the Stranger, or even the Deep Stone Crypt. It's kind of curious because the style of this armor set does share some visual elements with the Deep Stone Crypt, mainly the neon line work. But either way, it's a first look at what's going to be a significant icon, at least in a story capacity. However, another symbol that we should familiarize ourselves with is the new Fallen sigil, and so the trailer recently confirmed that we're going to see the House of Darkness icon alongside that new Fallen faction on Europa, and this is the same one that's displayed on the director currently with the pre-order link. And so of course this will be a very significant part of the story. We know about Aramis, who's going to be kind of leading this faction, but we see another curious enemy right here. And so we have the interesting question of whether we're kind of seeing the evolution of that main target for the DLC, or whether we're going to see numerous kind of fallen VIPs or new enemy types. It'll certainly be cool either way to get a bit more variation with the enemies. And we shouldn't forget that Variks has been reported as being spotted with this group of Fallen. So there's potential that they'll actually be working with House of Darkness, although the Ghost report did question whether Variks was potentially some kind of prisoner in the group as opposed to a member. Either way, with that really strong kind of Fallen focus and presence there, we're certainly going to learn quite a bit more. Another significant element to note on Europa would be this huge kind of almost turtle shell type structure above much of the architecture on the moon. And there are two things that we've seen in the past which could be linked to this. So the first would be the Deep Stone Crypt itself. Some neat concept art from Frank Capizzuto from Bungie shows a spire and a differently shaped structure, but one which shares that kind of same metal and stone texture mesh, almost pretty similar to the pyramids themselves. And this is believed to be a Deep Stone Crypt concept of some sort. But another minor possibility is that it could have been influenced by an older Dorje Belbrook piece of art. And this one envisions an alien structure growing from the ground, actually in the European Dead Zone, but the back part of the structure is very similar in shape. So it's a possibility and it's interesting to think about it, but most likely what we see above Europa is going to be part of the Deep Stone Crypt, or even part of the enemy invasion with the pyramids. And so be sure to give us your thoughts about that down below. A couple of other interesting things that we have spotted via the trailer though. Of course, we saw the new exotic heavy of some sort that Bungie had teased on the website, potentially a grenade launcher or tractor cannon style weapon. It's not 100% clear, but we've also spotted the Europa set of weapons with the kind of red and blue skin. But then, a third set of weapons here. They're ever so slightly similar to the kind of Drifter and Gambit style weapons we've seen previously, so that could potentially be a new set associated with him. It will be interesting to see which of the vendors end up kind of settled on Europa permanently. We do see a new vendor hub in one of the cinematics here, and at the time it actually seems to house 3 vendors, so probably Eris, Drifter, and the Stranger at one stage. Although whether all of those vendors will be present permanently on that new location is something we'll have to wait and find out about. Either way, there is a lot of cool stuff coming in November, and so I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about what we've seen and any things that you're most excited for, but also, we do have quite a wait until that time, especially with the delay. It's like 2/3 of a season with no content, right, added on the end of the current season pretty much. So I'd be curious to get a sense from you guys, how do you feel about the remaining time this season in D2? We're certainly going to have a little bit of downtime in a few weeks. Now though, let's get some other minor news roundups done. So, on the subject of Destiny entering the Xbox Game Pass, players asked, will this include Game Pass for PC as well? And Cosmo said, we'll have news for PC Game Pass members later in 2021. And so Destiny 2 running on Game Pass on PC isn't going to be a thing, at least for another year potentially. And of course, despite the shift to Game Pass, it's probably something that Bungie want to try and avoid, at least initially because, well, the Steam player base for Destiny is absolutely huge, and if you start chipping into that and giving content away on another platform on PC, it could be kind of problematic for them. So obviously, that will take a little bit of time, but it appears it could actually be on the cards, so that's also a pretty important element in itself. Currently in the game, we seem to be getting new glitches every couple of days, some of them more major than others, but a quick one to mention here is that Cheese Forever pointed out it appears that Malfeasance and Witherhoard have some kind of interaction with each other. So if you get a direct shot on an enemy with Witherhoard and then switch to Malfeasance, it'll make every shot from Malfeasance a critical one while the enemy is blighted. And so that does boost the weapon's damage by 25% overall, as well as the fact you've got tick damage from Witherhoard. Of course, how easy these glitches are to actually use and how many times they'll be useful is a different matter, and of course they are mainly achievable on PC with slower load times on console, but it's just curious that there is that interaction in the first place. Potentially, that blighted element from both Malfeasance and Witherhoard share some mechanical similarities that allow that to happen. A very random shout here, but somebody pointed out they ended up in a 20-person corrupted strike. And that was while attempting to load into the tower. We originally saw some stuff like this happen in the D2 beta, and it can very, very rarely happen in certain activities in the game, but just imagine how 20 players inside of the Corrupted would feel. Certainly pretty strange stuff, although that isn't something that I believe you can replicate intentionally now. I spoke the other day about a Vex Smither class leak, or what was very obviously a fake leak for year 4 of the game, and since we've been mentioning some of them, we had another recently, which was for the fake Galahorn coming back to D2. And of course these are folks just messing around, trying to post stuff up and then see if they gain any traction. But especially with reliable sources kind of dried up at this point, and with so much kind of nonsensical leaking happening around Destiny, yeah, we're almost at the point where none of it is very reliable anymore. We'll have to see which legendary exotics Bungie decide to bring back, but otherwise for today guys, as we wait for more information about Beyond Light, that is the bulk of what we have to speak about in the video. Once again, as we mentioned, some players are kind of starting to focus now on the fact that we're going to have a pretty long wait until Beyond Light is finally with us. In terms of the content roadmap, we do still have Solstice of Heroes, of course, and then the exotic evacuation quest, the exotic drop Traveler's Chosen, and a Festival of the Lost taking place inside of the summer season technically. But it is true that outside of that, we're going to see a little bit more downtime than what we would typically see inside of most seasons. Again, feel free to give us any of your thoughts about that down below, but there are some extra insights up on Bungie's blog, which go alongside the deep dive for the dungeon, so if you want any development insights about how that was made, some of the challenges and unique ideas and mechanics inside of the dungeon, it's actually a pretty interesting read, so I'll link that one down below, but otherwise I'll keep you posted on D2's upcoming content right here on the channel, guys. So if you want to keep up to date, be sure to get subscribed, and I will keep you posted, but otherwise give us your thoughts on any of the stuff that we've spoken about in the video down in the comments section. And if you have enjoyed the video, a like rating really helps me out as well. Also, feel free to check out my sponsor Now Drinks, who have some awesome and tasty alternatives to energy drinks designed to help improve focus and memory for gamers. You can save 10% in their store if that sounds interesting. But for now guys, whatever you get up to, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have an awesome day.